North stings the corner. You know it's coming. You still can't stop it.
Everybody, we are here. It is the Lacrosse Rundown Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time on my YouTube channel. It's ESPN's Jay Alter. It's me, Charlotte North, and we are coming off of the selection show. We've got the bracket. 29 teams have been decided. They heard their names called on Sunday night on ESPNU. We were lucky enough to be on that show with the Hall of Famer, Sheehan Stanwick Birch, but we've got our field set, and this might be our best show yet.
It will be, Charlotte. This is what it all leads up to. Right when we started the Lacrosse Rundown, we talk about May. We talk about how is this going to affect seeding and who are the best teams, and it's all about winning a national championship. I said it Sunday night, but everybody dreams of finishing their season in that dog pile, winning a national championship with their hands on that trophy, and one of these 29 teams is going to do it. Now, we'll go through all the contenders, but also what I love about the selection show is seeing those first-time teams like a Liberty, a Clemson, Akron. Like that's to me, they're probably not going to win the national championship, but they got to celebrate what is still such a special moment and special season. So awesome. I had so much fun with you Sunday, and the only problem with that format is it's not conducive to really being able to talk about it because we got to get 29 teams in 23 minutes on the women's side. The men have about half the teams in the same amount of time. So I'm glad we're able to do this on the Lacrosse Rundown and really break it down. And I think we should just kind of go region by region as we kind of go through this thing, and then we'll talk about the men's bracket as well, because this is my favorite time of the year. I really nerd out about this stuff. I look at all the matchups. I have so much fun doing this.
Well, we were lucky enough to talk to the NCAA committee before the show, and we heard details about the process and what goes into it, and there's so much drama. You mentioned your favorite part being the reactions of the teams that have never been in the tournament, who maybe punched their ticket through an automatic qualifier. I love the reaction of the teams on the bubble. You saw Army.
Yes.
They were the third Patriot League team to get in. We're going to get into that. But all the teams on the bubble, the reactions were epic, especially, for the teams that maybe thought that their season was over, for those seniors who get one more game, potentially more, and for the teams that get a home game, one more game on their turf. It's unbelievable, but you got it right. We talk about it all year long. We talk about it on this show, what wins do, what losses do, how it's going to affect the seeding. And now we've got some matchups on deck that are drama filled.
And you mentioned it, and I do want to reiterate it, but if you had a favorite watch party, drop it in the chat, because we know everybody was watching the selection show with us. So let us know as we go through this bracket what you think of a particular matchup or a watch party you loved watching, because we want your input. That's the best part of the show. So let's start with the number one North Carolina undefeated Tar Heels and Johns Hopkins being the 8 seed. So we'll call that the 1-8 region. No surprise with North Carolina. Johns Hopkins, to me, Charlotte, was a big surprise because we've been drilled into our heads over the years that RPI is the number one thing that the committee looks for. Now, it's interesting, talking to the committee, they kind of backed off that this year, saying, no, there's the primary criteria, then the secondary criteria, and RPI is just a third of the puzzle. Well, Princeton had the number 4 RPI in the country, higher than Johns Hopkins, and Hopkins has been without Ashley Mackett, and since she's gone down, let's face it, they haven't looked like the same team. They said, the committee said injuries did not factor into their seeding. So Johns Hopkins gets that 8 seed, but we could very well see Hopkins-Princeton in that second round matchup.
And I think that's a matchup that lacrosse fans want. I was shocked to see Princeton not get a seed. Now, they did lose in the Ivy League championship game on Sunday this past weekend to Yale, and Yale had a dominant win. They won by 11. It was their best performance of the season, no doubt about it. But shocked to see Princeton not have a seed with the RPI that you mentioned. And you look at Hopkins and their top 20 wins. I think that's what did it for them. Their top 20 wins on the season, they had a multitude of them. They had a win over Duke. They had a win over Syracuse. They had a win over Penn. And they had a win over JMU. All 4 of those teams are in the field.
Right, whereas Princeton really was hanging their hat on that Yale regular season win. If Princeton wins that I asked this to the committee straight up, if Princeton wins that Ivy League championship game against Yale, are they seeded? And they said simply, yes.
Yeah.
So where do I think they're seeded? Probably in that 7 seed, though. I still think they would be below, based off what we're hearing, a Maryland, a Virginia, which is very interesting to me because I thought they would be 4 or 5, given their RPI was 4. So you look at that bracket. I do want to give a ton of credit to Navy. We called it. We called it.
We did. You heard it
Patriot
here first.
League champions. You heard it here first. They get a tough draw, though. They got to play a Clemson team that looked really good in the ACC tournament, made it to the ACC semifinals. And then the winner of that game, you got to play the best team in the country. So that's a really tough region. I do think it'll be North Carolina and Princeton in that quarterfinal.
Okay. I think this Navy team has a ton of belief, and that is a powerful thing when you are a team and you have confidence and you have belief in each other and your capabilities, especially at this time of the year when you're tired, you're banged up. But all that really matters is if you have the girls in the locker room believing in each other. So I'm intrigued by the Navy Clemson first round game. I mean, talk about two programs who are playing the best that they have. I know Clemson lost their second leading goal scorer, Caleb McLeod, due to injury, but they're playing inspired. We talked about it at the ACC tournament. I mean, we're a little more than a week removed from that tournament, and so much has happened that people may forget what those performances were like at the ACC tournament. But man, that's a lot of talent in the first round.
I did think it was a particularly tough draw for Navy and Clemson, though. I think those are two teams that could have advanced given different draws. All right, let's go to the Boston College Yale region, which is the 2-7 region. BC gets that first round bye and will play the winner of Loyola and Stony Brook. That is another huge first round matchup. Two teams that I thought would win their first round matchup, and yet they're stuck playing each other. And then Yale hosts Albany, and then the winner of Syracuse and Brown.
I mean, Loyola Stony Brook is a big girl matchup. Like it's going to be a physical fight. You know, Loyola has a sour taste in their mouth coming off of the Patriot League championship loss to Navy, and they're going to play in Chestnut Hill, and they know what's waiting on the other side of that game. None of these games are going to be easy. These are all going to be physical, close battles. But I think, for the Boston College Eagles as well, they're coming off more than a week of being able to prep and watch these teams. And Loyola and Stony Brook, they played in their conference tournaments just this past weekend.
Yeah, I think Stony Brook's a team, again, they get difficult draws every single year. Even if they get past Loyola, I just don't know if they've got the talent on this particular team to stack up with a Boston College. Whereas Loyola, what they can do with the draw control, I think they would give BC a tougher matchup. So that'll be really interesting to see who wins that battle and plays BC in the second round. As for the Yale piece
New
of it,
Haven.
I mean, we could get a regular season rematch of Syracuse-Yale, which Yale won, and probably is a reason that Yale was a top 8 seed.
Yep.
Or if Brown beats Syracuse, you got an all-Ivy second-round matchup in Brown-Yale.
4 teams out of the Ivy League, 4 teams that made the Ivy League tournament. They all made the NCAA tournament. How about Brown? This is actually their first time ever making the NCAA tournament. First time ever making the Ivy tournament. So a historic season for the Bears. Katrina Dowd in her second year as the head coach. That game is going to be a fight, because I think you're going to see a Syracuse team that was unhappy with their performance in the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament against Stanford, and a Syracuse team that wants another chance at Yale. Like you mentioned, it was a battle that swung in Yale's favor in the regular season, and it was in New Haven. So I think they want another crack at that, and they want a chance to avenge that loss.
I do have, though, chalk winning out here in the 2 seeded teams moving on to the quarterfinal. Boston College, 7 straight national championship appearances. I just think they know how to win this time of the year. The culture of that program is going to carry them through, even though it is a difficult second-round matchup. And then I do think Yale, I think that senior class is going to do something special, not only Ivy League champions, but get to a quarterfinal for the second straight season, which is a huge step forward for that Bulldogs program. So give me BC and Yale in that quarterfinal.
Okay. I mean, Jenna Collignan, Sky Carasquillo, Fallon Vaughn, Taylor Lane. I mean, you mentioned the seniors. They're a group that has refused to go away. Even when people doubted them during the middle of the season, they gutted out a win at the final seconds in the semifinal of the Ivy League championship tournament against Penn, which another team we'll talk about in a little bit. And then again, the dominant performance in the championship game against Princeton. I think that game against Syracuse, if Syracuse advances, will be closer than people think. But I'm going to go just to go against what you're saying. I'm going to go. We're going to see a Syracuse BC matchup.
And it feels like every year in the tournament, eventually Syracuse and Boston College meet one another. So I wouldn't be surprised. All right. This is called the Big Ten region because you've got number 3 Northwestern, number 6 Maryland, Michigan's in this pod as well. And then I think the best first round matchup out of all of them is Penn Army.
Yes,
that is going to be a battle in the first round with the winner likely playing Maryland.
Shout out Army because head coach Michelle Tumalo has now been to the tournament 3 times in her 4 years, I believe, there.
Incredible.
And
truly incredible.
It was really Army's wins that did it for them. And the biggest one to me was their win against Stanford.
That got them in. That got them in.
And they beat Navy in the regular season. So, and that win does a lot now. So I think you're right. I think this is a Penn team that lost by 1 in the final seconds to Yale against, or in the Ivy League semifinal. And this is an Army team that lost to Navy in the semifinal of the Patriot League. So I think you're going to see 2 teams playing inspired. Now, if you're the Quakers, do you potentially see a road ahead where you get to potentially upset Maryland at home in the second round? This is a matchup. We talked about it at the selection show. Penn, Maryland, Penn's favor in the regular season. Penn won in the final seconds. It would be an upset, but I think fans want to see that matchup again.
It'll just be very interesting. We've talked about the Ivy League being chaotic all season long. How far do these 4 teams go? Like, does Yale make a run? Does Penn make a run? Or do they get nobody to the quarterfinal? So that is honestly the most intriguing thing to me is where do these 4 Ivy League teams end up? I do just have a feeling we're going to get a rematch of that Big Ten championship game, though. 1-goal game. Maryland plays inspired. Best defensive performance that they've seen all season. Felt like the Terps that we've used to been watching over the last decade. I just do feel like we're going to get Northwestern Maryland in Chicago, but it won't be an easy path for Northwestern. I still think they're the favorites to come out of this region, but to go through 2 conference opponents, that's brutal.
And if you were voting on who has the hardest path, I would vote Northwestern. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, not only are you playing two rivals in a sense in the Big Ten, if all holds that we think will happen and Maryland advances through their pocket, I would say Maryland's going to have a tough time going up against Northwestern if goalkeeper JJ Suriano does not have the same type of performance that she had when that game was so close in the Big Ten championship. But I think that this has the makings for 1-goal game after 1-goal game for Northwestern, and it could be a lot to mentally and physically handle as you're trying to punch your ticket to the Final Four.
It was just a few years ago that Michigan in the second round was leading in the fourth quarter, and Northwestern came back to win by a single goal. So Michigan will go in inspired. I just do think Northwestern finds a way to get it done.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting. I look at that Penn Army matchup, and you're right. It wouldn't surprise me if the winner of that game upsetted Maryland, but I think they're going to take so much out of each other on a one-day turnaround. I just think it'll be very difficult to leave College Park with 2 wins.
And different from the men, the first and the second round for the women's tournament are on the same weekend. So this coming weekend, Friday,
Sunday. Yeah.
Friday, Sunday.
We'll be sitting here next Tuesday night. Our quarterfinals are going to be set. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. If you think there's someone else who has a harder path than this quadrant or this part of the bracket, let us know what you guys think. This has my vote as the hardest path. But I think, I mean, going back to Michigan really quickly, Jay,
You saw what they did last year in the tournament, going to Notre Dame and upsetting them in the second round of the tournament on a game winner at the end. So, I mean, it feels like they're playing better come tournament time each season, and this is a Big Ten matchup that I know that they feel like they did not play their best in when they met the Wildcats this regular season. So, let us know what you guys think. This is quite the loaded quadrant.
Yeah, and if there's an upset in the first round that you guys like, write in the chat. We'll monitor, and if you get it right, we'll definitely give you credit a week from tonight. All right, final quadrant. Florida at 4, Virginia at 5, and that might be the biggest surprise of all the seeded teams. Virginia, who lost in the quarterfinal of the ACC tournament, earning that 5 seed. 6 losses for Virginia, but such quality wins that, head-to-head beat number 6 Maryland. I think that probably elevated them to that 5 line.
Yeah, and they beat Princeton. So, and that carried a lot of weight, before the Ivy League championship result, but still carries a lot of weight. And they play in a conference that had 7 teams get in, right, Jay?
Yeah, 7 teams out of the ACC. Yeah, so 7 teams out of the ACC, 4 Big Ten, 4 Ivy League, and 3 Patriot League for the first time in conference history.
For the first time ever. And that's slept on because I think it's being overlooked a little bit because of the dominance of the ACC that we expected. The dominance of the Big Ten, of course, but in the Ivy League, a lot of stories in the Ivy League, but the Patriot League, 3 teams in. Virginia at 5, to me, I think speaks to the competitiveness of the conference, what you get in terms of strength of schedule when you play in this conference and how that bolsters your RPI. And they might not have the same record or win percentage as others that have been given the 5 seed in years past. But I think that's because of the nature of the conference. And they beat, like you mentioned, Princeton, Maryland, Duke, and JMU.
Yeah, so 2 top 10 wins, another 4 top 20 wins. That all is check marks for the NCAA committee that earned Virginia that 5 seed. And I think a relatively easy path. No disrespect to LIU. Shout out Long Island University. The Sharks. They make it for a second straight season. And then James Madison and Duke, another great first-round matchup. But I think Virginia's better than both of those teams. And on the bottom side of it.
This is the story, the bottom side.
Yeah, I mean, Stanford, Denver, Florida, Mercer. That is a gauntlet. Whoever survives that pod is going to really have to earn it. This is my upset. So I've got a Virginia-Stanford quarterfinal, an all-ACC quarterfinal between Virginia and Stanford. I think Stanford, yes, their resume got dragged down because of the losses to Army and Denver. Both of those were explained to us at the ACC tournament. Army, they flew in the day before. Denver, midweek game, just felt like it was injuries were piling up. I think they've recalibrated the version of Stanford that we saw a week ago at the ACC tournament. I think they are good enough to emerge, beat Denver, get revenge in that game, and then upset number 4 Florida.
Here's the kicker. Denver beat Stanford.
Yeah, I know.
Season.
And that's funny because I've got Stanford, not to get ahead of it, but I've got Stanford going to the Final Four.
What?
And yes, I do. I've got Stanford going to the Final Four, and they could very well lose in the first round of Denver. It wouldn't surprise me. Denver's a really good team.
Okay. Wow. I mean, we'll hold that thought on Final Four because we'll get there at the end of the show. But I think Stanford avenges the loss to Denver. I think Florida will give them a very hard game.
Florida beats them
at home. I do. I think Florida beats them. Franny Hahn, the freshman, has been pacing them on offense. She's been incredibly impressive. Teresa Bragg on defense. They're a physical defense. They play man-to-man, and they are aggressive. We saw Florida in the Final Four a year ago, and although they didn't win against Northwestern in the Final Four,
they played great in that game.
You could feel how scrappy and aggressive they are, no matter who their opponent is. They do not care.
We're biased, right? I've seen a lot more of Stanford than I've seen Florida.
Right.
That's just. But you lose Maggie Hall and Danielle Pavanelli. I just don't know if they have that same offensive firepower. I'll be happy to be proven wrong. But that's my take.
Let us know what you guys think. But what a bracket. I mean, we talked all year long. There's been so many upsets. There have been teams that have turn their season around. There have been teams that have been through ups and downs, but these are the 29 teams, and everybody starts at 0-0, and everybody has one goal in mind, and that's to win the game in front of you. Now, some teams have 2 games this upcoming weekend, potentially, but you got to keep your eyes focused on the game ahead. And all these first-round matchups on Friday, if you guys are near a TV, a laptop, a phone, an iPad, you name it, you've got to turn the lacrosse on, because all these matchups will not disappoint. But we want to know what you guys think. Who has the hardest path, and who's on upset watch to you guys?
Awesome, Charlotte. So we just recapped the 2019 women's bracket. Let's take a look at the men's bracket. And before we get there, you might have seen a viral clip, no pun intended, making the rounds this past weekend. Charlotte and I were on the call for the MAC championship game between Siena and Sacred Heart. And, well,
just roll the clip.
Yeah.
Sacred Heart has diarrhea.
And now we'll get our penalty.
Okay, so that is a lesson in always know where your crowd mic is.
Okay, we apologize.
Live TV,
thank you, Jay, for clarifying that our crowd mic was located. was located. Anyways, but shout out to Siena. What a game. Yes. They punched their ticket.
And they've got a great, so they're in the play-in game.
They are.
It's Albany, Siena. They're separated by like 10 miles. This is going to be an epic game with the winner getting Cornell. How about Cornell winning the Ivy League in an epic championship game?
That was the best.
Princeton.
That was one of the best tournaments I can remember.
I think those are the 2 best teams in the country. I really do.
Absolutely.
I think it's Cornell and Princeton. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the national championship game. I don't want to, skip going through every matchup, but I'll just cut to it. I think Cornell plays the winner of Syracuse-Princeton. So Syracuse is the 6, Princeton is the 3. So that'll be a quarterfinal matchup. The winner of that game will play Cornell for the national championship at Gillette Stadium. And I love that the men and the women will crown a champion in the same place.
Unbelievable. I mean, you mentioned Princeton and Cornell. I think absolutely, without a doubt, they're the 2 best teams. If you did not watch the Ivy men's championship game this past weekend, you've got to go watch the replay. Goals were being scored at a ridiculous rate. You got Cotter, Quint in the booth breaking it down, and you've got some of the best goal scorers on the planet. You have Nate Kabiri, Coulter Mackesy for Princeton. You've got CJ Kurse, of course, but you've got Goldstein and a number of other weapons on the Cornell offense. They play so well together. They work off each other. The way they score goals is exactly how the sport is meant to be played, honestly.
The offense was as free-flowing as Quinn Kesnick's new hair, Charlotte.
Confirmed. Okay. But the story of the men's bracket, Army did not get in. Harvard got in instead. They were very close in RPI, strength of schedule. Harvard had 4 losses. Army had 2. Ultimately, it feels like it was Army's losses and lack of quality wins besides that North Carolina win that left them out. What do you think, Jay?
Well, so they have good wins if the teams they beat did a little better.
Right.
Army beat Yale and Rutgers, and normally that would be and North Carolina. So you're thinking, okay, they're in, but Yale and Rutgers didn't have particularly strong seasons, not the seasons we're used to seeing from them. And I think that Syracuse winning the ACC ultimately was the difference, because Harvard had that win against Syracuse. Let's say North Carolina wins the ACC, then I think Army's in. So
I completely agree.
If you're Army, you're like, well, we don't have any control over how North Carolina, Yale, and Rutgers do after we beat them, but their opponents kind of let them down. And I feel bad, because I think if Army's in, they'd be in that Harvard spot. That Syracuse Army game would be.
I know. And do you think Jackson Eicher could still be a Tewaaraton finalist?
I don't, because I think a lot of it has to do with how your team performs. So that's a huge criteria for that particular award. So I don't, which is too bad, because I think if they do make it, he would have been. But as I said, do we even need 5 finalists, because the trophy is being shipped to Ithaca and CJ Kurse?
This is true.
And that's where I will be, Charlotte. I got a first-round matchup. Yes, it's Sunday evening. Join us in Ithaca. So
what if you get Siena again? That could be fate. Anyways, what I have my eyes on the men's bracket really quickly. The ACC tournament shook everything up. We talked about it last week, the ACC tournament on the men's side, there is no automatic qualifier. There are 5 teams in the ACC, so one team gets left at home, and that was Virginia. The other 4 went down to Charlotte. They played in the ACC tournament. Syracuse won the title, and they went through 2 of the best teams to do it. Now, Duke, you see them at number 7. They earned a home game. They were on the bubble heading into the ACC tournament. Maybe not going to make it. Backs against the wall. They put on an absolute clinic. They beat North Carolina in the semifinal, and then they lost to Syracuse by 1 in that ACC final. But now they get an extra game at home, and they're playing against the Big East champs in Georgetown. The other matchup that got completely shook up, you look at Ohio State, Notre Dame. I think this might be the best first-round matchup that we have seen in quite some time. This is the Big Ten champs versus the reigning national champ, 2-time national champs in Notre Dame, who lost in the ACC semifinal, which shook up their projection in this bracket as well. They were projected to be hosting.
You feel so bad for Ohio State. Like, hey, congratulations. You won the Big Ten championship. And, oh, by the way, you have to play the 2-time defending champs. And this is where I think we still have a problem as a sport, because you can't tell me that would be the proper seating.
Yes.
That's for geography. Let's call it what it is. Because Notre Dame would not be below, I believe Penn State is playing Colgate. So I think Notre Dame should be at Penn State in the 5-12, and that Ohio State should get Colgate. But instead, because of geography, Ohio State has to play Notre Dame. And I just don't think that's fair. You would never see that happen in like college football, college basketball. And I get lacrosse isn't on that level financially, but for the integrity of the bracket, I do think Notre Dame should be playing Penn State and Colgate should be playing Ohio State.
It's such a tough situation because this bracket is much smaller, and it's due to the number of teams in Division I, among other things. But it's as a lacrosse fan, it makes for very exciting.
You get a Final Four game in the first round for Ohio State Notre Dame.
Every round. I mean, the quarterfinal round could be national championship type matchups. I mean,
Duke, Maryland,
forget about it.
Syracuse, Princeton. Yeah, it's Carolina, Cornell. I mean, at one point, North Carolina and Cornell were the best 2 teams in the country. North Carolina's dipped here at the end of the season, but they could rally. It really is a loaded field and should make for awesome viewing here in May.
Unbelievable. All right, so now we've reached our favorite part of the show where we get to interact with you guys. And this is the best time of the year because we get to talk about these matchups. We get to break it down with you guys. We get to hear your thoughts, most importantly, and what you're excited to see. And as we continue on through the NCAA tournament, we get to continue the conversation right here on the Lacrosse Rundown. So we appreciate you guys being here every week, but especially right now in our favorite time of the year, and hopefully yours too. But Jay, I put up an Instagram asking people for their Final Four predictions with the bracket. So I'm gonna read some off and get your reaction.
Okay.
All right. We've got somebody mentioning Lizzie Kelly. Sorry, Army Navy National Championship. America will be there
on Memorial Day weekend. How great would that be? Look, we just saw that matchup in the Patriot League semifinal. I would give that less than 0.01% chance, but I love it. I'd be there for it. I would totally be there for it.
I love it. She plays at Navy too. She went to my high school. Shout out the ESD Eagles. But that's an awesome comment.
I thought you said Liza Kelly for a second, who's the head coach at Denver. And I'm like, does she have Denver?
I was thinking about the Denver-Stanford matchup, and my mind was Liza Kelly. But no, Lizzie Kelly. All right. We've got Gia LAX 1 said UNC, Florida, Boston College, and Penn.
Oh, I was about to say that was chalk, but no, far from chalk. You've got Northwestern losing to Penn. Okay. I love the creativity. I thought, Charlotte, when you started this, I thought, okay, how many times are we going to hear BC, UNC, Northwestern, and Florida? So I love a little upset special here in our comments.
Yep. And Jay, I think you remember this very well. Last year, quarterfinals, Northwestern, Penn lost on that very field. Do you think they remember that?
Definitely. Definitely.
All right.
And if I remember, it was not a particularly close contest.
Not particularly close. Okay. We've got BC, Hopkins, Florida, and Yale.
Hold on a second.
From Noah Benjamin.
Noah. If Johns Hopkins beats undefeated North Carolina without Ashley Mackin, wow, that would be that might be the biggest upset in the history of the sport. I don't see North Carolina losing in this pod. I really don't, unless maybe he thinks like a Navy takes out North Carolina and then Hopkins plays Navy. You never know.
The legendary Mrs. Birch brought up a great point when we were doing the selection show. The year that Navy made it to the Final Four in 2017 at Gillette in Foxborough. Sound familiar? They went down to North Carolina and they upset the Tar Heels to get there.
The Fighting Cindy Timschels. The greatest coach. She invented the sport. The greatest coach in the history of the sport. If there was a Mount Rushmore of coaches,
she's right on it.
George Washington. So,
all right. Final one that I'm going to give you, Jay.
Yes.
Not a prediction, but a question.
Okay.
Jay Shard said, question, is there somewhere online you can run an electronic bracket for picks, etc., similar to men's and women's basketball? Well,
not that I'm aware of.
So you got to go old school. You got to print it out. You got to write down your picks and you got to stick to your word. But we have news for you guys, fans of the Lacrosse Rundown, the community of the Lacrosse Rundown. You heard it here first. Breaking news. We are doing a tournament bracket giveaway. And here are the rules. You have to, once this video ends, go to the live tab of my YouTube channel, click on the video, enter in the comment section your prediction. Final Four predictions and the national champion prediction. You must include both in your comment. You've then also got to like and subscribe to the channel. And the third and final rule, you must post your predictions on your Instagram story and tag us at the Lacrosse Rundown. At Lacrosse Rundown, no the in front of it. At Lacrosse Rundown, our Instagram, plain and simple. And if you do this, the closest to the correct answer, unless we have someone who gets it spot on, correct, all four members of the Final Four and the eventual national champion, we're going to check back in after Memorial Day weekend, will win a brand new Gate Whip 2, signed by yours truly, designed by myself, Gary, and Paul. The Whip 2, brand new head, unbelievable. If you're an offensive player out there, you couldn't ask for a better head. So this is a giveaway. It's our first giveaway, Jay.
This is spectacular. I mean, we were talking about this last night. Where would people submit a bracket? Everybody loves a bracket. And look, no entry fee. This is for the love of the sport. If you've got the passion for lacrosse like Charlotte and I do, load up your picks. Charlotte just explained it, but get it on the comments. Get on Instagram, like and subscribe. And look, you might be walking away with a Charlotte North signed Gate lacrosse head.
And we know you guys are at the end of your seasons. Maybe you're heading into your summer season. You need a new stick. Now's the time. But remember, we will include all these rules in writing in the comment section in case you forgot them. But you've got to drop your four teams that you predict will be in the Final Four and your prediction for the national champion out of that bunch. And I hope we have someone who gets it dead on.
Me too. First and second round, ESPN Plus, all the quarterfinals games on ESPNU, semifinals ESPNU as well, and then the championship game, Memorial Weekend Sunday, live, noon, main ESPN. If you're not watching live at Gillette, you got to be tuned into the TV broadcast. Charlotte and I will have the call, and we'll be breaking it down all May long right here on the Lacrosse Rundown.
Thank you guys for joining us. The race to Gillette is officially on, and we can't wait to watch it unfold with you guys. The best part of this show is getting to be with you guys. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.